All right. I would like to welcome Janice McLean DeLoatch. How you doing? How's
Hi,
everything going?
it is
Great,
going
great. I'm
well.
great. I'm so glad to have you on the show. It's a pleasure to see you and take the time out to spend with us for a little bit and give us the background because you have a big background. I don't know if I have enough time in this podcast to cover everything that you've done, but it's a pleasure for you, to see you and for you to be here. And I'd like to know because I know you're from Maryland, you're from Baltimore because I used to live out in that area. So tell me about what are the humble beginnings for Janice? Like, how did you get into business? What pushed you there? Was it Baltimore? Was it Maryland? Was it the D.C. or they say the DMV, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia? Because I'm from New York, and most people,
Yeah.
when you say DMV, they think about the Department of Motor Vehicles. Yeah,
Oh my
that's
gosh.
right. That's
Yes.
right. But I want to know, like, growing up in Maryland and Baltimore specifically, how did you make up your mind and say, you know what, I think I'm going to go into some sort of business?
Okay. Well, thank you first off for inviting me to be on your
Absolutely.
show. I'm glad to be here
Thank
with
you.
you. And I will start by telling you that my family uh, is a true group of entrepreneurs. And when I was younger, my mom and dad had a restaurant in Baltimore. In fact, we had the only restaurant that was black
Really?
owned
Wow.
in Baltimore
Wow.
City in East Baltimore at that particular time. And so my grandmother was the president of the pastor's aid.
Nice.
Incidentally, the whole family got recruited into working in the church and working for the pastor and just really being servants to the
Sure.
community. And so there were times that I just really didn't want to spend all of my time at church, but now I understand how important it
Right.
was. And so our restaurant was called McLean's Carryout, and my mom and dad um, really were advocates for people in the neighborhood. There were times that people didn't eat, and we would feed them. There were times that they didn't have money, and we would let them. Well, they would let them owe them until their next
Sure.
paycheck or
Sure.
whatever. And there were single mothers in the neighborhood who sometimes are. And even children would come home and they didn't have home cooked meals and things like that. So they would come and hang out at our restaurant. So it became more like a hangout spot for
Right.
me. But what I got to see firsthand were black people, black families, a husband and wife, children, all working together for the same
Right.
cause. And I got to see it up hand. And my niece and I, our job was to fill the soda machine and the potato chip
That was a nice
machine.
job to have, though.
Um, it was a
Yes,
wonderful
indeed.
job to have. In fact, it was so good that my niece and I got fired
Wow.
because my father said, "You girls are eating up all of the profits." So, you know,
Right,
so
right.
we spent more time eating it than putting it on
That's
the
so funny.
shelves.
Wow.
So, yeah, and so my father, James Henry McLean, and Fanny Bell McLean, really were the pioneers and inspiration for me, just really growing and watching them. My father worked for one of the steel companies at the time, which was big, but he also owned his own taxi cab. I used to always ask him, you sure you're not, Jamaican or something, like, that old saying. But he was a very hard worker. And my mom was also a very hard worker. And I say were because both of my parents are
Okay.
gone. But they instilled in me a really strong work ethic and to believe in something and to go for my dreams no matter what
Right.
it was. And that's really something in itself because, most of the time you get the guideline of, okay, you're going to go to school, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, you're going to go work at this company. And my family really didn't tell me that. It told me to do whatever it was that I was happy doing.
That was good. Yeah.
And
Good advice.
yeah, yeah. And so that's really how growing up in Baltimore, my beginnings were. Um, and I don't know. I loved my neighborhood. I loved the people in the neighborhood. I love being a part of
Right.
something. And back in the day, if people remember, at least that's how it was for me. I lived in a all black
Hmm.
neighborhood. We knew all of our neighbors. We shared, we hung out, we played, we fought, we cried. But it taught me that you have to, it's okay to belong to something, but you've got to do your part to make it whole too.
Absolutely.
So I think that's what I got from growing up, early beginnings.
Now, growing up in Baltimore and having the ability to work with, business, because obviously the soda machine and the snack machine got you in trouble, like we all did, because who doesn't eat snacks, right? But when you had that opportunity, did you think back then that you would think about becoming an entrepreneur?
I won't say that it was necessarily about becoming an entrepreneur. What I will say is, my family always, really, they were always like, well, do whatever makes you happy. So at the time, playing the clarinet made me happy. So I did that for 9 years. And then I decided that I wanted to play the flute because, Prince at the time was doing all his instruments, and I thought I'm going to be like Prince. So I'm going to learn to play the flute. And then I learned to play the guitar. And then I learned to play the drums, not very well.
But you became a multi-instrumentalist, which is pretty good. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, I did. And so, so they didn't really tell me that you have to go follow this career path. And really, probably if they had, we wouldn't have some of the projects that I'll tell you about a little later, because I'd be working probably in an office building somewhere. But I also know that God has a lot to do with the way I believe spiritually that there is a higher power, and that He does set up a path for you. And everything that happens, even sometimes when it's not always great, still works to your good. So I learned to play all these different instruments. I'm in high school. I enlisted myself in the band. I went to the Catholic High School of Baltimore. Again, I was one of 5 black students out of 300 students in Baltimore City. How about that?
Wow, that's incredible. That's incredible. Wow.
But one thing about me, my father was like this, and so was my mom. We never segregated ourselves from people, even during times when we probably should have been. Like, I got to know everybody, the nerds, the smart people, the band leaders, the punk rockers, and through the years, I've reflected a little bit of all of that, actually. Yeah. So I'm in the band, I did the band, and I graduate high school. I decided I'm going to go and create my own band and write my own songs, and I did. But my mom was real sick at the time, and she said, well, listen, you have to really decide, what are you going to do? Right. And again, the advice was, whatever it is, you follow your heart and you do what really makes you happy, but you also have to be able to make some money while you're doing it.
Same advice I got.
And so I thought
that's pretty good. I mean, you had a great foundation. You had great parents. Kind of like when I grew up in New York, you have that old mentality of, it takes a village to raise a child. And everybody was family. Even, although you may not have been blood, relatives and neighbors, everybody was just pitched in and did the right thing, which is your background. And it's an incredible story. So I got to ask you, having that nice, cool background of the soda machine, I can't get that out of my head. I love it. But getting into your radio show, how did you get into, how does that even work? But how do you start your own radio show? You're on once a week, I believe. It's doing well. I've listened to your show. Incredible show, by the way. Love it. And absolutely. And want to push it. I love what you're doing. So please explain to me, and explain to everybody, how did you get into radio?
Well, so radio, again, so by happenstance, let me say that. I'm going through high school. I do the pantyhose vending machine. That was my first real business creation. And then out of being frustrated with because after I left high school, I had to make some money. So I took a job, still wrote songs and music on the side. Created a pantyhose vending machine because I was going to an interview flawed.
That's a genius idea.
Then I moved
That's a genius idea, by the way.
I always say if I had $1 for every person who told me how great that idea was back then, I would have been a millionaire, So, but it's okay. And then I go to Entrepreneur's Edge TV because I'm frustrated about not being able to find funding for the pantyhose vending machines. And so before Undercover Boss and Shark Tank and The Profit, and I'm probably giving them way too much credit right now, there was Janice in Washington, D.C., with her little microphone and my little camera, setting it up, doing it myself. I started out around the same time that Maria Bartiromo started out. But I wanted to talk about business and entrepreneurship. And I remember several times, several people telling me, oh, nobody wants to talk about business or entrepreneurship. What are you talking about? We don't care about that. I said, okay.
Got something for you, right?
Anyhow, yeah. So then I started doing Entrepreneur's Edge TV and ended up kind of dabbling with radio. Found out that the station that I was at really wasn't good for what I was trying to do because I was talking about small business and entrepreneurship. So I took a break and wrote a book called The Autobiography of an Entrepreneur. Nice. Continued to do Entrepreneur's Edge TV, rebranded it to It's Janice TV. And then the pandemic came. And I was like, I couldn't go out on my shoots. I couldn't see people in person. Zoom was great, but it's not what I was used to. So I said, you know what? How about I go back to radio? So pitched a radio show to a couple stations. I got one. I ended up on Radio 1 Network. And there were some other things that happened behind the scenes. And so that's how I'm here today. Wow. And so my shows are about business and entrepreneurship. And I talk to all kinds of amazing people of different backgrounds and diversities and genders. And it's really a playground for me.
That's really interesting. I'm just curious, out of curiosity, what has been one of the best ideas that you've heard? Like an entrepreneur may pitch something to you, or they're not really sure if they want to cross over from, say, corporate America. Somebody's been in corporate America 20 years, and, the axe comes down. They don't know what to do. They start panicking, and they don't really believe in themselves. How do you convince someone that it's okay to fall, but if you become an entrepreneur, be your own boss?
Wow. I don't know that anybody has ever really come to me and asked me, to critique their ideas per se. But I have had a number of people ask me, how should they move forward? So that's a really, really, really good question.
Yeah, my pleasure.
The first thing that I say to anybody is you've got to believe in yourself. You've got to really believe, even when you don't think you should believe you.
Right.
You've got to believe. Mostly everything that I've ever done has been me stepping out on faith. But I also understand where their fear comes from, because my background was a little different in that I had people who encouraged entrepreneurship and developing businesses and solving problems. And some people, that's not really, they don't have that background. So it is daunting. It really is when you're stepping out on your own. But if you feel like you have a good product and it solves an issue, then by all means, I feel like you should go for it. Now, can I tell you it's going to be successful? Can I tell you should do it? Yeah, I'll tell you that. But I could tell you that all day long.
Exactly.
You've just got to know that what you're doing is important, at least enough to you. Most of the time, when you create something, people don't just sit around and think of ideas that we really don't need.
Right.
There's always a need for it. But are you really the one to deliver it? So that's the question that they need to ask.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good answer. Very good answer. I know lots of people that have, and that's why I brought that up. I know people that have actually worked in corporate America, and they complain all the time. Oh, they're not paying me enough. Oh, they're not doing this. And I say to them, listen, as you said, my mom always told me, you got to step out on faith. You have to believe in who you are. Because if you don't believe in yourself, who's going to believe in you? And I think that's a great option for you. I can't wait to, your show is great, by the way. I just got to say it again. It's a great show.
Thank you.
You're doing a lot of great things for a lot of great entrepreneurs who really don't have a platform to really voice their opinions on certain things or certain ideas. So I commend you for that. So now you got to tell me about please, no problem. Please tell me about what's going on with this wonderful thing called the Songwriters Hall of Fame. I can't. I've been waiting to hear about this one here. Because you have some great guests coming up. So please, let's just talk about that.
Wow. So I feel that entrepreneurship has really always been my calling.
Right.
I always felt like I'm a problem solver, and I feel that God's always put me in places that I needed to be at the right time. Sometimes I didn't really want to be there and do it, but I know that it was for the greater good. I created TV shows and radio shows, and then when I looked at the devastation of how Black businesses and minority and women-owned businesses have always have always been an issue for minorities and women trying to raise capital. And when the pandemic happened, it really just put everything out there in plain view so that we could really see it. Now, I've actually been fussing about that for the last 15 years.
Sure.
And finally the world, because they had to see, wow, what she's saying is really right on the money. And then all of these people started dumping money everywhere trying to help anything that was related to women or minorities, which they should have been doing anyway. But also that came out of that was the blackshoppingnetworks.com. So that's a platform that I have, theblackshoppingnetworks.com. And that is to, again, level the playing field and give minority and women-owned businesses the opportunity to scale up, because one of the main problems they have is marketing and advertising and getting somebody to give them space, or getting space in a store, or getting space on a shelf. So, as always, my thing has been about solving problems and creating solutions that work for everybody for the greater good. The Black Shopping Network was one of those things. I'm reading my book, I'm going through my book, I'm sitting home, and I just start really listening to music, really getting back into music. The Women's Songwriters Hall of Fame is something I actually had thought about before. But the more I thought about it, the more I said, you know what, this just really needs to happen. And so I just started reaching out to people that I knew, and I said, I've got this idea. I really could use your help, getting this off the ground. And as usual, God sent all the right people at the right time. And we went to work.
That's good.
So we're all these little elves behind the scenes, and we're just really making it happen. And we start to honor these amazing women. Tawafa A.G., Roberta Flack, Denise Williams, Valerie Simpson, Naomi Judd, Mary Chapin Carpenter, Climax, Dr. Vero Howard, Jacqueline Carr, Bunny Hall.
Wow, yeah.
And people don't like Bunny Hall. People don't even know that name, Bunny Hall, but you really do. If you ever listen to the Beverly Hills Cop movies with Eddie Murphy,
yes, indeed.
Or if you ever listen to almost any music soundtrack between the 80s and the 90s and the early 20s, then you know Bunny Hall's work. And so doing the research behind the scenes, I started to notice the trends that were happening with women being left out of the conversation for a lot of the major award programs, songwriting, publishing.
Right. Exactly.
And then I discovered that there are 3 women who actually have ever run record labels as a CEO or a label head.
That's right.
That I know of. Now, if you've got 50 record labels and only 3 women have run them, that's an issue. And I'll just give you some facts real quick. There are 800 members in the Songwriters Hall of Fame. 77 are women, and 2 are Black women.
Unbelievable.
In 2021.
That makes no sense. It makes no sense.
So I don't really have to say a whole lot to people. And this is not, I'm not, trying to throw any shade at anybody in terms of the Songwriters Hall of Fame. I thank them for what they've done. And really, what's happened is men were nominating men because that's just, it just was never
the good
a
old
thought.
boys club.
I don't think it was
Right, the good old boys club, and they didn't really recognize women are just as equal songwriters as men, but they just hadn't had that push, which I never understood it personally. There's so many great female songwriters from then and now that it should be at least half of what you mentioned, if not equal to the men that have been inducted.
Mariah Carey has written 7 or 8 number one
That's
records. Her song spent 8 weeks at the top of the chart, tied with Elvis Presley. And it's 2021.
Right.
As of 2020, they were just thinking about adding her to the Songwriters Hall of Fame.
Incredible.
Mariah Carey, she's been singing for 30 years. How did we miss that?
You're right.
Stevie Nicks, on the other hand, has been nominated for the Songwriters Hall of Fame twice.
Incredible.
Okay. And now you have, and this is not a race with these other entities at all, because we're in our lane. And, even when I look at some of the award programs right now, you have Jay-Z being honored by the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Right. Yeah, I said the same thing.
I don't know about you guys, but I don't really think that Jay-Z is a rock artist.
Right.
So I'm kind of confused about how that works.
Power.
Nonetheless, we, and then you've got people who have been, again, writing songs and singing behind the scenes for years, and they've never been honored. Mm-hmm. And that's what's so special about the Women's Songwriters Hall of Fame. We don't have to change our categories depending on who we want to honor, because it's open to all women, all genres, all types of music. No gender bias, no age, but it is a gender bias because it's for women, but there's no age bias. And we want to do things like helping with creating songwriting and helping to move the needle forward, because I feel like at this point, women should be seen, they should be heard, and they should be paid.
I totally agree. Now, what I want to ask you is, with the Women's Songwriters Hall of Fame, do you have like a certain amount of women per year? Is it every year? Is it every other year? How does that work?
This is the first year for this program. It's our inaugural year, which we're all super excited about. Wonderful. We will honor 10 to 12 honorees. And I say 10 to 12 because sometimes it depends on logistics. Right. This year we have 10. Mm-hmm. And I just gave you their names. They're all just absolutely amazing. I remember
amazing. Climax too. Great group. Great female group. Yes, Climax, absolutely. Yeah. Back in the 80s. Yeah.
So, well, and then, but we're also going to do a throwback video to people like Louis Armstrong's wife.
Nice.
She actually was a songwriter and wrote a lot of his music, and people don't know that. And she was a band leader.
Okay.
And then when you think about Cab Calloway's sister was a band leader and helped him write a lot of his music. You never know that because they're left out of the conversation, So this will be an event that happens every year. It is the first new award show in many, many years, in terms of music anyway. It is on the East Coast.
Yay! That's pretty cool.
We don't have to go to LA. Right? And I think some people are really excited just about that part. It's at the National Women's Museum of the Arts. That a number of people didn't even know there was a museum for women of arts or any women's museum in DC. So there's that. Isn't that something? Yeah. As a matter of fact, the National Women's Museum of the Arts was founded in 1970 by Wilhelmina Holiday Cole, and she started the art museum because there were no programs that would accept art from women artists, which is interesting. Now, at the same time, the Songwriters Hall of Fame was also created during that same time period.
Unbelievable.
Sorry, guys. really a fact.
Look, drop that. You got
You know,
to
I'm not going to shade it, y'all. It just
you
really
got to
is
drop
what it
that
is,
knowledge on
you
them.
know?
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
And that's so the whole reason is because this is part of the
Right.
education, you know, and that's really the only reason why I bring these things up, because it is just a part of educating people about where we were and where we can go,
Absolutely.
because I just believe that we can soar as women, as people, united as a
Right.
whole. So it may sound hokey to some people, but I don't know, I really do believe that.
I think it's
Yeah.
a great thing that you're doing. I would love to attend because I love. There's so many female songwriters out there, like you said. There's so many. I can, we can go on and on about how many, but there are a lot of them out there that deserve their just due. Unfortunately, like you said, the Songwriters Hall of Fame, even the Grammys and American Music Awards, there's always somebody being held back or they're not really acknowledged. And maybe next year, and we may not have next year. So I think it's a good thing that you're giving people that platform to be recognized, which they should be. I mean, why not? Climax,
Yeah.
why not? Roberta Flack, are you kidding me? Why not? Mariah Carey,
Yeah.
Janet Jackson. There's so many of them, so many.
There's so many. And the rumor has it that they haven't been honored before because nobody could find them or nobody thought about
Are you
that.
serious? That's
Okay.
incredible.
Well, I can tell you, we had so many names on the list that we had to narrow it down to 10. It was so hard because all of them were so
Right.
good. Madonna,
Sure.
Cher, oh my gosh, Minnie
Sure.
Riperton,
Sure.
you
Love Minnie
know,
Riperton.
living and those that are living that are
Right.
not living. Diana
Right.
Ross, because Diana Ross is actually a
Yes, she is.
songwriter. People
Yes, she
don't know
is.
that.
Yes, she is.
Yes,
Carol Bayer Sager.
yes,
So many.
yes. Carol
Yes.
Burns.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. I know.
hmm
Yeah. I read my liner
Diane
notes when I was
Warren.
a
I mean,
kid. Yeah, Diane Warren
yes,
is another. No, when I was a kid,
Diane
when I was a kid,
Warren.
I had talked
Yeah.
to Watha about this, and she was big on liner notes, and so was I, which I was stunned because not too many people read the liner
hmm
notes on album covers. So you would sit back, I would listen to the Isley Brothers or whoever I was listening to, and just see like who wrote the song. What was ASCAP? What was BMI? What does this all mean? How do you connect the dots? And no, there
hmm
was no information. There was no Google back then to really look it up. So you had to kind of figure it out. But learning the business side of it and
hmm
understanding how important it is for songwriters to be recognized, because that other end of the performer, where they don't want you to
Yeah.
be recognized, they want to take your publishing and your writing and keep it moving. But I think the recognition of the great songwriters that you just mentioned is a really, really good thing. And I really commend you for what you're doing.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. And it just means so much to me that you guys, it's interesting because I'm super excited about these
Yes.
women and what they've done. Like when you're talking to me about their work, I'm like,
Right, right.
oh, I'm just like just like a
That's
little
right.
kid,
That's right.
And then, when people say, well, Janice, this is really cool that you're doing that. I'm like, yeah, okay. You know, because it's not about me.
That's right.
It's about them.
Absolutely.
It's about uniting us all as a
Right.
whole. And so I will tell you, I'm grateful to be here with you doing this interview because I really didn't want to do
Okay.
them. I want them to do them because this is all about them.
Right.
And I really mean that. I
hmm
really do.
Well, I thank you. I thank you
So,
for saying that. I appreciate that. I just couldn't wait to have you on personally because I love your story. And maybe one day
thank
we'll
you.
all unite and bring some of the guests that you have on your show. I mean, one of your guests, Tawatha, has actually been on the podcast here, which is a good thing. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, she's been here, and
hmm
we had so many. We had a lot of good times on the podcast because we have so many friends in the music business, and we never really crossed paths.
hmm
So she's an amazing lady. Yeah,
Oh, wow. Okay.
she's an amazing lady, and I think it's
Yes.
so important for us as a people to really recognize each other and spread the love and spread the wealth, because what we hadn't done so many years, like when I was a kid growing up in New York City, everything was about work, 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 share the love. If I have something, if I have a cupcake, I'm going to give you a piece of mine so we
hmm
can have a whole cupcake, right? That kind of faded away because
Yeah.
the upbringing that a lot of kids have nowadays is a lot different than when we were coming up. So it's important for them to really
Yes.
know their history. And right now, a lot of young people really don't know their history. They didn't know that songwriters They were black female songwriters or songwriters that women wrote songwriters, regardless of the color. They didn't realize that. So it's really important that you're bringing this to light, and I commend you for it.
Oh, well, thank you.
Absolutely.
And look, we might need your help
Listen,
next year when we're doing this
anytime you
event.
need me, listen, it's not a problem. I got you. It's the door's always open. The door's always open. But I got to ask you one thing.
Yeah.
No, go ahead. You get ready to say something.
Yeah, because we're honoring women, but we're not excluding men, So y'all definitely welcome. You can come over there and help us to hang out with us.
Anything
So,
you need,
yeah.
I will be there. You just call me, and we will talk
you.
offline, and definitely I will give you whatever you want. I mean, I'm here for you. I'm here for everybody because we have to work together as a team. It takes a team to work to get everything done. One person can't do it. But if you call me and say, "Hey, Ricardo, I need you to do this," listen, James, I'm there. When? I'll say when.
Well, thank
Absolutely.
you. Thank you. And I just want to again say congratulations to all of the ladies, our inaugural class of the Women Songwriters
Yes.
Hall of Fame. Tawatha A.G., Roberta Flack, Valerie Simpson, Bunny Hall, Naomi Judd, Mary Chapin Carpenter, Dr. Verl Howard, Jacqueline Carr, and Climax.
There you go, Climax.
To all the ones that are working behind the scenes, Mr. Angelo Ellerby, Wendy Dorsey. Thank you guys. Thank you so much. Appreciate
Absolutely.
you.
Mr. Ellerby is he's a great person. Absolutely. And I got to ask you one more thing before you leave. What is next for Janice? What you got going on next?
Oh, wow. It's funny because I get that question a lot. I think people know that, I really tell people I am ADHD and they think that I'm joking, but I really don't think I am. I think I really am. But I think what I'd like to do is maybe just kind of sit down for a minute and figure out how to really get the BlackShoppingNetworks.com and the Women's Songwriters Hall of Fame and my radio program, because I do have a few things going on, make them the best that they can absolutely be.
Totally agree.
And if I can help other people along the way, then so be it. But I think my concentration will be on making those projects what they really need to be so that we can help other people across the board. So I think that's what's next
great.
for me.
That's great. Well, listen, anything you need.
And a cheeseburger.
Look, and a soda machine and some snacks. I love that. I love it. It's been in my mind. The whole conversation has been in my mind. But listen, I really appreciate you coming on. Please provide your social media. I'll have it in the description, but please tell me, where can they find you?
Okay, so for the Women's Songwriters Hall of Fame, I just want to also let you guys know that it's open to the public. Tickets are available. We still need a few sponsors who want to step up and be a part of this event. It's going to be a great one. We just did an article in Billboard magazine. You guys can go and reference that. That was really good. So it's called Women's Songwriters Hall of Fame.org if you want to get more information about what we're doing. And tickets and support, Women's Songwriters Hall of Fame.org. The BlackShoppingNetwork.com is the Black Shopping Networks, NETWORKS.com. And then you can follow me at Janice McLean DeLoatch. I'm on all of the social medias, but you should come to my website first. It's JaniceEPK.com or Janice.media, and you'll find out a lot of the things that I'm doing. I don't put on social media. I put them on my sites. I kind of always have. And then I also have this book, The Autobiography of an Entrepreneur. That's out there somewhere. But, just send me a note, send me an email or hit me up on any of the social medias. And I really do follow up and respond. Even if I don't, I certainly make sure we try to get you the answers that you need. If nothing else, just say, hey, girl.
That sounds great. Well, listen, it was a pleasure having you on. I wish you much success. Anything you need, please do not hesitate to reach out because More Tribe Music Podcast has your back. Trust me when I tell you. You're welcome.
Thank you. Now, remember you said that when I call you up. Don't be surprised.
Listen, when I say it, I'm a man of my word. I'm serious. If you need anything, I got you. Don't even worry about it. Okay? All right. Hold on one second.
All right.